Hey there, cats and kitties. I am the Blues Man, Johnny Blues, coming at you live once again to talk about Star Wars The Last Jedi. This is going to be a spoilery discussion. If you haven't already seen The Last Jedi, I don't want to be responsible for ruining anyone's time watching this movie. Even though it is revolving around something that happens fairly early on in the film, it is still a very impactful thing that happens. I didn't know, anything about it. I went in completely and totally blind, and it was for the better for that fact. So once again, spoiler warning. I'm going to be talking about something that happens early on in The Last Jedi that is hella impactful. If you haven't already seen the film, click off this video and come back after you have. Otherwise, you'll be sticking with me. Let's rock and roll. So I've already talked upwards of over an hour and a half about The Last Jedi in my 3 subsequent videos that I uploaded, live stream, discussed the film. The first video was very much a sort of overview, reaction. My first reaction to the film, and all of the things that were the most memorable and the most weighty, and all the emotions that I felt and sensed watching the film. The 2 subsequent videos that would follow were very much to do with sort of the fan reactions to things that didn't really sit that well with me. Mostly to do with the first of those 2 videos, the characterization, or poor characterization as some would have it, of Luke Skywalker. And I spoke at length about a lot of the things that I was familiar with, a lot of the work in progress, filling in the blanks and the plot holes of what I understood based on, Star Wars Explained videos and Hello Greedo videos and things of that sort that had basically chimed in on aspects to the expanded universe, in the tie-in materials, the books, the video games, and everything like that. So I knew enough about what Luke was up to since we left off with him in Return of the Jedi to fill in all of those gaps, and the rest of it came through the dialogue of the film for me. So, a lot of people were saying this isn't the Luke Skywalker I grew up with. It's not the same character anymore. And I spoke at length in that second video about all the reasons why, no, it isn't the Luke you grew up with. This is a different man. This is a different human being. 30 years have passed. They aren't going to be the same person. And all of that kind of stuff. And then in the third video, I talked very much about the brilliance and depth of character that came across in Kylo Ren, and his interactions with Rey and Luke, why I appreciated that so much. And I wanted to also sort of, give some food for thought about why he was the way he was in the film, and what was really going on there between he and Snoke, and his reservations, the conflict, air quotes, that existed, within him and everything, because that all tied back into people's poor estimation of Luke as a character in the film. And so there have been a couple of things that I've heard bandied about General Leia in the film, which it's the closest approximation to a pet peeve of mine to hear the way people are quantifying her character in the early portion of the film, when, basically you have Kylo bearing down on the Resistance vessel that she is contained within, and he hesitates to take the shot because of that ill-perceived, sort of conflict within him that I was very descriptive about, that I don't believe it was genuine and everything like that. It all points back to Snoke, as I discussed in that third video. But then these 2 TIE fighters, his wingmen, come flying up from behind him, and they took the shot. And they exploded out the bridge of this vessel, sucking Leia and like Admiral Akbar and all these other nameless, faceless Star Wars Resistance members out into space. And I gasped for breath when I first experienced that. My breath was caught in my throat, and much as I would hear many people describe, my first reaction, because of the way it's edited, is, is that it? Is she dead? Did they just kill Leia in that moment? And everything. That's like across the board, the reaction everyone has. And then it's not so much about that, but what comes moments later, when she rescues herself, in a manner of speaking. It's the approximations I'm hearing people in describing that, what they saw, that are pet peevish to me. One of the things goes right back to that whole half an hour plus discussion about Luke, how he's a changed person. He's not the same person we left off with at the end of Return of the Jedi. 30 years have passed. He's lived lifetimes. He's gone exploring the galaxy looking for Jedi relics. He tried to reform the Jedi. There were things, a whole slew of things we don't know about him. And one of the chief complaints that I hear about Leia in that moment is, when she summons the Force to preserve her own life, is we've never seen Leia utilize the power of the Force in such a manner before. Thus, it cannot be. It cannot exist. There is no excuse for it. There is no rhyme or reason for it. And I would go back to that same fluid argument. It's 30 years later. There is any number of chances since we left off with them that Luke could have just sat her down and said, look, just in case you ever find yourself at the brink of your own mortality, here are a couple little things that you can maybe utilize that I've learned, that I've mastered. Use them. Maybe he taught her lifting rocks, whatever inborn force power she has goes back to the first time we ever see it depicted in The Empire Strikes Back, when she can communicate and sense Luke. That is really the foundations, the burgeoning of her having that ability. Granted, we don't see her utilizing it. But are you telling me in the 30-year span she was never alone by herself, taking a crap, doing something? Oh, I can't reach the toilet paper. I wonder, like, of course, I'm entering some levity into this discussion, but she could have been sitting somewhere by her lonesome and realized she could manipulate pebbles into the water of a babbling brook she was sitting next to on some mission, as an ambassador or something somewhere. She had 30 years to figure this out, to develop it, to evolve. And even if there was some reluctance on her part, even if she didn't have some tutor, some Jedi Master overseeing it, even if Luke hadn't overseen it, I think there is something to be said for whereas the Force is not cognizant, it doesn't have a mind of its own. It is a sort of energy that has influences, both positive and negative, and it might even be growing and evolving beyond that scope by where we're left at the end of The Last Jedi. But there's every, chance that maybe she never used that much forceability in her life, and in that moment where she was facing her own mortality, sucked out into space, it kicked in, that survivor's instinct kicked in. And now I've already seen a couple of videos talking about the existence in the expanded universe of certain Force-capable powers that we see utilized in that moment. That sort of thin layer of shielding, protective Force shielding, is something that already exists. It's already established in the expanded universe come Legends, based on a video I've seen. So it is something that it already has a legitimacy in the expanded universe way before The Last Jedi was ever a thing. So there's rhyme and reason for it. As far as the fact that you've just never seen her use this before, out of sight, out of mind, it doesn't work that way. 30 plus years have gone by where she had every opportunity to cradle this ability and maybe expand on it a little bit. Enough to save her own life. Now, the other thing about this sequence, the more pet peevish thing, is the way people are describing it. There's one of two things I've seen, and they're already making memes about it. One is the Mary Poppins thing, which, okay, Star Wars is a Disney property. We already have Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 with Yondu and I'm Mary Poppins, y'all, and everything like that. So I can see how you would make that illusion and whatever. Leia is a Disney princess after all. And so whatever. That one I can take with a grain of salt. The one that really, really irks me is comparisons to Superman. Leia of the planet Krypton? No, not so much. Everyone describes this as she's flying through space. She's up and away, flying through space. And to my mind, to the way I understand the way the Force has been depicted, that's just not what's happening. And so it is irksome as a Superman fan, as you can see, Cavill in all his Man of Steel glory. Going all the way back to many years of comics, reading and everything like that. Kingdom Come, and I could be here all day, you know, listing stories, Superman stories and everything like that. The Christopher Reeve movie and even Superman Returns, you know. The TV series Smallville. I have loved a lot of different incarnations and iterations of Superman. And quite frankly, what happened in that sequence was not Leia suddenly flying off back to the ship that had expelled her just moments before. I believe, and this is the way I've wrapped my mind around it, and this is the way I'm hoping I'll be able to give food for thought to anyone who stumbles across this video that has had that poor estimation of, oh, she's flying back to the ship in space. If you call back to The Empire Strikes Back, it's very much akin to the sequence we see where Luke cannot lift his X-Wing back out of the swamps of Dagobah, and Yoda does it for him. Now, granted, it's a completely different environment. They're on planetfall, there is gravitational forces and everything like that, but for all intents and purposes, Master Yoda lifts that X-Wing out of the swamp waters and grounds it on land again. This is what was happening with Leia in that instinctive survival mode moment. She tapped into the Force and reached out to that spaceship, I believe. And much as Yoda had done, grappled onto it, and rather than zoom, flying toward the ship, you know, up and away like Superman, flying to safety, what was really happening was she was summoning the ship toward her. But because there is no gravity, because it is space, for all intents and purposes, and she is the lesser, you know, equatable mass, it looks like she's zooming toward the ship. She's saving herself flying toward the ship. She's flying toward it visibly, but really what she's doing is summoning it toward her. And those forces, for lack of a better term, kind of like a mime pulling so much rope, you know, like that, like pulling. She is pulling herself toward it. It's very much a lifeline, a Force lifeline that had grappled onto that ship, and she was attempting to pull it toward her, but, you know, because she's the smaller being in that equation, she moves toward it. But she's pulling herself toward it. She's not flying. It doesn't matter that she's, like, pointing, like, zoom. You know, it's the same way Yoda did it. He pointed his fingers, and he closed his eyes, and in his mind, he visualized the vessel, and he pulled it free of the water. I equate it to being like whenever you're playing a video game, and especially for some reason it reminded me of the Ghostbusters game from, I think, 2012, 2016, I don't remember when it was. But the PS3 version of the Ghostbusters video game, when you had the proton pack on, and you would go to summon, you know, sort of throwing a fishing line, summon ghosts and capture them, even though you're on the controller, you're not feeling any force of expended force and having to pull or push or anything. You know, pull things towards you or pull yourself toward things, in the case of the, you know, slime grappler and everything like that. But you are still sensing it with the give and sway of how the digital character on the TV screen is manipulating the things around them. You still feel it. You get a sense of feeling it. If you're playing GTA, and, you know, you're bunny hopping on a bicycle, or you're jumping over a fence, you know, whatever like that, as you're playing, you get that hand-eye coordination thing, but you also get this sensation in your mind that you can feel. Like, you know, it's aided by things like whenever, you know, your controller would vibrate if you smash one car into another and everything like that. It's adding to the sense of all of what's going on. So even though you're not there, you're not experiencing the feeling of that impact. You're not, you know, experiencing the feeling of bunny hopping, jumping all over the place, and you know, running and all this kind of stuff, swimming in water. You can still get an estimation of what that feels like. You still have a sense of it. And so that's the real world equivalent of what Leia is thinking internally for those few brief moments before she's about to completely extinguish. And that survival mode kicked in. She reached out with the Force, and she grabbed, she grappled, and she pulled herself to safety. She didn't go zooming off flying like Supergirl, like Superman, or anything like that. And it's just that one little pet peeve, differentiation. People are making fun of it. They're mocking the movie because they don't like it. If they straight up don't like it, it's a subjective thing. If you just didn't like what it was, like, especially if you've thought it all out and you've come to rationalize it all and make sense of it all, and you still don't like it, that's on you. That's perfect. That's fine. Whatever floats your boat, or in this case, sinks it. But I want people to think about what they are seeing. I want people to actually put a little effort into it. Okay, so you start off with Luke isn't the same character I knew growing up. He isn't the same hero that I looked up to and called back to, that I've held in my heart for so many years. Well, why? What makes him different? What's more? What are the things that happened to him, that transpired in those 30 plus years of his life that changed him so? Try to see it from his perspective. There was one time I went to the post office, and there was this loud, obnoxious lady, a couple of people behind me, and she's trying to cut in the line. She's like, I got places to go. I got people to see. Come on. Oh, you can't even get the label on my package right. I got called in. I got to pick up a package. I got a package that they won't send out the right way until I pay for it. I already have, paid, blah, blah, blah. Whatever. Loud, obnoxious, pain-in-the-ass woman. Completely oblivious to the postal workers who already have a whole line of holiday shoppers and package senders and everything like that. People picking up packages, people sending them out, and this, that, and the other thing lined up around the corner. Never once did she try to empathize with them and see what they're dealing with. And ironically, that's the first thing I think when I'm anywhere. If a registered jockey's having a bad day and it just so happens that I get into a conversation with them, I put myself in their shoes. I put myself in what they're dealing with. I understand. I apply all of those annoyances and perturbances that I've personally experienced that are relatable at the forefront of my mind. I don't actively just stop everything I'm doing and think about it. It comes to me naturally. But there's something to be said for doing that with entertainment as well. You can be empathetic and emotional and have an open mind and gauge what's going on. You can fill in the gaps for yourself of what's going on, what has transpired. Think it through. And all of these subsequent videos that I've done since my initial review overview, first reaction video to The Last Jedi has just been under the guise, I'm not pointing a finger saying, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong, I'm right, you're wrong. It's not about that. It's about trying to open the viewer's awareness to what's really going on and to try to think a little more outside of the box. Try not to just take everything at face value and leave it at that. I want to give you food for thought. I want to explain out how I am interpreting it. And maybe it'll help you. It'll give you a guidepost to have a better appreciation and understanding of what you just watched, what you just experienced. Maybe it'll lessen the blow of how badly you took it. It's not going to work like that for everybody, and that's perfectly fine. It is subjective after all. I loved the movie much more than I had issues with it, but I did have thorough issues with it. But still, I didn't come away with those issues, all told, being a ruining factor for me. For some people, what transpired was a transgression that can never be unmended, and they thoroughly did not enjoy the film. And that's fine. And it's kind of, malicious to a point when people are poking fun and saying, oh, Leia flew, especially the fact that Carrie Fisher has passed away, and we will no longer get this character anymore, at least as portrayed by her in the flesh. And I'm still carrying the weight of missing her, and I feel like it's disrespectful to poke too much fun at that. And to be so dismissive of it and not really consider what was going on there. Be a little better, the best estimation of a human being you can be, and try to apply your mind and just think it through. Think about what was actually going on. And at the end of the day, maybe I'm just blowing smoke up your patootie. Maybe I'm completely way off base. Maybe I'm completely wrong. Maybe I'm just running hamster circles on the wheel in my own mind to fill in the gaps. Maybe I'm, air quotes, making excuses, as some people have the gall to say, as to the reasoning as to why I might have enjoyed the film. Well, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what you say because we all have our own individualistic experiences. It is all subjective, and if I like the movie, no matter what you tell me about why you didn't and why I shouldn't, it's not going to change my mind. It's not what I want to do to you. I don't want to change your mind, but I would like to promote some aspect of thinking. Think a little more about it. Make some considerations. Be a little more empathetic. And maybe you'll have a better viewing experience. I don't know that The Last Jedi is going to be for all time greatest Star Wars movie ever made. It is so divisive. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people forever banging on and on and on, ad nauseum, ad infinitum, of how bad it sucks. I've heard some people actually going to the extent of saying it's worse than any of the prequels. STFU. You know. And I'm somebody who has actually grown an appreciation for the prequels. If it has the Star Wars label on it, I'm not going to just love it, you know, immediately without any batting of the eyes. You know, I am going to take it to task whenever there's a problem inherent to it. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. They are what they are. Take it or leave it if you must. But if you're going to enjoy these movies and you're not going to let all of the detractions, the detractor elements, sour that for you, you're not the worst person in existence. It's perfectly acceptable to like and love and be passionate about all of these Star Wars movies just as much as there is allowance for hating them, ripping them to shreds, or being somewhere right down the middle, like myself, like I like to think I am, where you can pointedly pull out what are problems and what are the good aspects. And I just happen to firmly land on the side that in spite of the problems, I still dig it at the end of the day. So yeah, you know, some people want to compare General Leia to Mary Poppins. They want to call her Supergirl, Superman, General Leia of Krypton. And I feel like there's a little bit of a lack of respect there. People poking fun out of the malice, their hatred for the film. But it is what it is. Much as I enjoyed the film, they can hate it as much as they want. But maybe you're one random person who came across this video, is listening to what I have to say and thinking, you know, there's something to that. Maybe there was something more going on there. And if I've accomplished even that much in just one person, let alone as many people as the numbers rack up, you know, of viewership on this video, if I've swung anyone's mind just to consider a little more, just to have a second thought about things, then I feel like I've accomplished something. So yeah, otherwise that is my rant for the day. I'm gonna cut it short than a full half an hour, but still 23 minutes going on as of the time of this recording. Looking at the timestamp, is pretty incredible. I didn't expect to be talking about this for that long, and yeah, so otherwise that's going to be it for me on this. Hope this video finds you well. May the Force be with you. I can't believe it's the first video of 2018 I'm doing. I'll catch y'all later. Peace.